Do you dare uncover the truth behind Italy's most cursed island? Poveglia, once a plague quarantine zone and a brutal asylum, is now buried in ash, blood, and whispers. A secret team sets foot on the island and discovers the plague book, a gateway to an ancient hell, a curse, vengeful souls, and a shadow entity await in the dark. Each episode unlocks a new layer of horror, and not everyone will return. Subscribe now to follow this deadly journey before the darkness finds you. Poveglia Island, located off the coast of Venice, Italy, is considered one of the most haunted places in the world. In the late 18th century, the island became a quarantine station for plague victims, with approximately 160,000 people dying there and being buried in mass graves. By the 20th century, Poveglia was converted into a psychiatric hospital, where brutal medical experiments were conducted under the hands of a deranged doctor. According to legend, the doctor eventually committed suicide by jumping from the island's bell tower after being haunted by the spirits of his victims. Today, the island is off limits to tourists by the Italian government, but stories of ghostly bells, anguished cries, and shadowy figures continue to make Poveglia a terrifying legend. Chilling mysteries, ghostly bell sounds. Visitors who have secretly set foot on the island report hearing bells ringing from the old tower, even though the bell was removed long ago. Supernatural figures. Many have described seeing white apparitions, gliding through the crumbling hospital corridors, or faces appearing in the shadows. Oppressive atmosphere. Those who step onto the island often experience shortness of breath, unexplainable fear, or the sensation of being watched. Mass graves. The plague victims' burial pits are believed to emit supernatural energy, with the ground occasionally trembling for no apparent reason. Ancient curse. Legends tell of an ancient ritual connected to the plague that was performed incorrectly on the island, awakening a dark entity that manipulates the souls of the dead. Authenticity. Historical facts. Poveglia was indeed a quarantine site for plague victims during the 18th and 19th centuries, with massive numbers of bodies documented in historical records. The psychiatric hospital operated in the early 20th century, and reports of brutal experiments are confirmed by medical documents from that time. Local folklore. Locals in Venice avoid speaking about Poveglia, viewing it as a cursed place. Stories of ringing bells and ghostly figures have been recounted by numerous witnesses, including fishermen and trespassers. Tourist ban. The Italian government officially bans visitors from the island, adding to its mystery. Some secret exploration. Teams have captured strange phenomena, unexplainable sounds and images, despite legal restrictions. Outline of the series. 7 episodes. This series follows a group of 5 explorers: Elena, a historian; Marco, a filmmaker; Sofia, a psychologist; Luca, a sound engineer; and Giovanni, a local guide. They secretly land on the island in search of the Plague Book, an ancient manuscript believed to hold secrets on controlling the plague. But their journey awakens a dark entity, forcing them to confront vengeful spirits and the darkest parts of their own pasts. Episode 1: The First Step. Poveglia Island, a dark scar off the coast of Venice, Italy, holds the memories of thousands of souls. Once a quarantine station for plague victims in the 18th century, where around 160,000 bodies were buried in mass graves, the island later became a psychiatric hospital known for its brutal experiments. Ghostly bell sounds from an abandoned tower, shadowy figures in the dark, and a suffocating atmosphere have led to Poveglia being banned to tourists. Our exploration group decided to infiltrate the island in search of the Plague Book, an ancient manuscript said to contain secrets for controlling the plague. But from the very first step, they realized they were not alone on this cursed island. A light drizzle fell on the winding canals of Venice. Inside a small cafe near the Rialto Bridge, 35-year-old historian Elena Moretti, her black hair tied neatly back, sat focused on an old notebook. The pages were filled with notes about Poveglia, the island that had haunted her ever since she read about the Plague Book, an ancient manuscript rumored to hold a formula for controlling the Black Death, but also harboring a deadly curse. Elena believed the book might reveal the truth behind the pandemic that once ravaged Europe. She looked up as Marco, a laid-back documentary filmmaker with a camera slung over his shoulder, walked in. "You're really willing to risk everything for a book that may not exist?" he asked, half joking, half serious. Sophia, a sharp-eyed psychologist, interjected, "It's not just the book. Poveglia is different. I've read psychological reports of former patients." Luca, a sound engineer with headphones around his neck, nodded. "I heard there are unexplained sounds on the island. I want to record them." Finally, Giovanni, a weathered local man, entered. "I'll take you there," he said, voice low. "But don't blame me if the island doesn't let you leave." The group agreed on a plan. They would rent a small boat and secretly land on the island the next night, when coastal patrols were sparse. Tension filled the air, but curiosity and the hunger for discovery pushed them forward. Night fell as the small boat glided over the black waters of Venice Bay. Giovanni steered, eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. Locals call Poveglia the island of no return, he whispered, nearly drowned out by the wind. Fishermen say they hear crying from the island on moonless nights. Marco, checking his camera, chuckled. Just legends to scare off tourists. But his smile vanished when their flashlight caught a rusty, floating sign. Poveglia, no entry. Sophia gripped the railing, a chill running down her spine despite her thick coat. "Does anyone else feel a heavy presence?" she asked. Luca, checking his audio gear, shook his head. "It's just the wind." But Elena, sitting at the bow, noticed strange ripples in the water, like something had just moved beneath the surface. She said nothing, her hand tightening around her notebook. As the boat reached Poveglia's shore, an eerie silence fell. Gnarled trees reached out like skeletal hands, and the air smelled of damp earth mixed with something foul. "We're here," Giovanni said, his voice trembling. "Be careful." The group stepped onto the muddy ground of Poveglia, flashlights slicing through the thick darkness. The ruins of the old asylum emerged, peeling walls, shattered windows, ivy crawling as if trying to conceal past atrocities. Elena led the way, eyes gleaming as she found a path into the island's sparse forest. According to old maps, the mass graves are west, near the hospital, she said. Marco turned on his camera, recording the desolate scene. "Feels like we've stepped into a horror movie," he joked, though his hands were shaking slightly. Luca adjusted his audio device, then frowned. "Do you hear that? Like whispering." The group paused, but only the wind whistling through the trees responded. Sophia, standing near a crumbling wall, felt a cold breeze on her neck. She turned, but saw nothing in the shadows. Suddenly, the ground beneath them gave a faint tremble, like a distant heartbeat. "An earthquake?" Marco asked, tense. Giovanni shook his head. "No, this island, it's alive." They pressed deeper into the island, a growing sense of being watched crawling up their spines. Elena spotted a hazy figure dart between two trees, but when she pointed, it had vanished. As night deepened, the group set up a temporary camp near the old hospital. Luca installed recording equipment, eager to capture anomalies. "If there are spirits, they'll leave behind sound traces," he said excitedly. Elena spread out an old map on a rock, pointing to the bell tower. "The book might be there. Documents say it was hidden in a secret room." Suddenly, a piercing, distant bell tone rang out, sharp and echoing. The group froze, exchanging looks. The bell tower, but the bell was removed long ago, Giovanni whispered, face pale. Luca checked his gear, static hissing in his headphones. "That's not a normal bell sound," he said, voice shaking. "It has frequencies, not from any known instrument." Marco pointed his camera toward the bell tower a few hundred meters away. The lens zoomed in, but only darkness filled the frame. "Probably just the wind," he offered weakly. No one believed him. Sophia stood, eyes locked on the tower. "Something is there. I can feel it." She stepped forward, then stopped when a faint whisper echoed, like a plea from afar. The group decided not to approach the tower just yet. It was too dark. They returned to their tent, trying to stay calm. Elena reread her notes, heart pounding as she realized the bell's sound matched descriptions from ancient texts, a sign that a dark entity had been awakened. Marco, sitting by a small fire, rewound footage. "Look at this," he said, pointing at the screen. For a brief moment, a faint white figure appeared near the tower, then vanished. Sophia hugged her knees, muttering, "We shouldn't be here. Something's watching us." Luca reviewed his audio files and discovered a bizarre recording. Dozens of overlapping whispers in an unknown language. "What the hell is this?" he whispered, pale. Suddenly, a scream rang out from the direction of the hospital. The group jumped, flashlights swinging wildly. Giovanni stood, gripping a dagger. "That's no animal," he said. "That's something else." Elena's beam landed on a dark corner, where a faint figure stood motionless, eyes glowing white. Before anyone could react, it vanished, leaving behind icy air and pounding hearts. As dawn broke, the group packed their gear, determined to explore the mass graves in search of clues about the plague book. The bell's echo still haunted their minds, and Luca's recordings offered undeniable proof that Poveglia was more than an abandoned island. But as they moved west, Elena shuddered at a strange symbol etched into a bone jutting from the ground. It perfectly matched a cursed ritual symbol from her ancient texts. Meanwhile, Marco began hearing whispers in his head, as if the island was calling him into the darkness. Episode 2: The Death Pit. After a terrifying first night on Poveglia Island, the expedition team remains haunted by the eerie bell and ghostly figures lurking in the dark. Determined to find the Plague Book, an ancient manuscript believed to hold the secret to controlling pandemics, they head west toward the island's mass graves from the 18th century plague era. But as they explore the burial sites, they discover strange symbols and signs of an awakening supernatural force. Marco begins exhibiting odd behavior, as if the island is invading his mind. Poveglia isn't just cursed, it's alive, and it intends to keep them there forever. Dawn on Poveglia brought no relief. Dim light filtered through the gnarled tree branches, casting shadows across moss-covered ground where white bones jutted through the thin soil. Elena led the team down a narrow path to the mass grave area, the old map in her trembling hands fluttering in the cold wind. According to the documents, the graves are scattered around here, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. If the Plague Book is hidden on this island, it might be near these places. Marco, still holding his camera, captured the scene, sunken pits of earth, some exposing fragments of human bones. "This place is like a giant cemetery," he muttered, his voice faltering as his eyes fell on a femur engraved with strange markings, a circle with snake-like curves. Sophia, standing near one of the pits, felt her heartbeat quicken. "Do you guys feel that? Like the ground is breathing." Luca, monitoring his audio gear, nodded. "There's a low-frequency vibration. Not an earthquake, more like a heartbeat." Giovanni, always clutching his dagger, scanned the surroundings warily. "Don't touch anything," he warned. "Venetians say these graves hold more than corpses, they hold curses." But Elena had already knelt down, brushing soil away to uncover another bone marked with the same symbol. "This isn't random," she whispered, her eyes lighting up. "This symbol, I've seen it in medieval ritual texts." Back at their makeshift camp, Elena flipped through her notebook to a hand-drawn page of the exact same symbol found on the bone. "It's the emblem of an ancient ritual meant to appease death during plague times," she explained, voice trembling with both excitement and dread. People believed engraving it on victims' bones could prevent their spirits from rising in anger. But if the ritual was performed incorrectly, it could summon something much worse. Marco, sitting apart from the group, seemed distracted. He stared at his camera, rewinding last night's footage. "Did anyone else hear it?" he asked suddenly, voice unusually low. "The whispering, it's in my head." Sophia turned toward him, frowning. "Marco, are you okay? You don't look right." He shook his head and forced a smile. "Probably just tired. But I swear, I heard someone calling my name." Luca played back the previous night's recording, and the room filled with layered whispers, dozens of voices speaking in an unrecognizable tongue. "I analyzed it," Luca said, pale. "These voices, they're not Italian. They're not any known modern language." Giovanni stood abruptly. "Enough. We need to leave before it's too late." But Elena shook her head. "We've come too far. I need to find the book." In the afternoon, the team returned to the gravesite for more clues. Marco, usually sarcastic and energetic, was unusually quiet. He lagged behind, pointing his camera aimlessly into dark corners. Sophia noticed his hands trembling and his unfocused eyes. "Marco, maybe you should rest," she suggested. But he snapped, "I'm fine. Don't tell me what to do. His sharp tones stunned the group. While Elena dug into a small pit, she uncovered a scrap of old cloth, possibly the remnants of a plague victim's clothing. The same snake-like symbol was stitched into the fabric, but this time stained with dried blood. "This isn't from the 18th century," she whispered, heart pounding. "It's fresher." Giovanni approached, inspecting the cloth. "Could be from the Asylum days. They did horrific things here." Suddenly, Marco screamed and dropped his camera. Clutching his head, he muttered, "They don't want us here. They're angry." Sophia rushed to him, placing a hand on his shoulder, but he shoved her away, eyes bloodshot. "Don't touch me. I see them. Hundreds of them, standing in the shadows." Before anyone could react, Marco bolted into the sparse woods, disappearing among the trees. The team split up to search for Marco, their flashlights sweeping through underbrush and ruins. The wind howled like groaning voices, mingling with faint whispers Luca swore his equipment was picking up. Sophia, walking with Giovanni, felt a cold gust pass through her, as if someone brushed by. "Something's here," she said, trembling. "I don't just feel it, I know." After nearly an hour, they found Marco standing still near a grave pit, his camera on the ground still recording. He stared blankly into the pit, mumbling incomprehensible words. Elena cautiously approached. "Marco, are you all right? We need to go back to camp." He turned to her, eyes vacant. "They say the book isn't meant to be found. It belongs to them." He pointed to the pit, where the earth had begun sinking again, revealing more bones with the engraved symbol. Luca picked up Marco's camera and shuddered. The last footage showed a ghostly figure, not Marco, standing behind him during filming. "What the hell?" Luca whispered, rewinding. The figure had the shape of a woman, her face distorted, eyes rolled white. Sophia grabbed Elena's hand. "We've awakened something. This island, it's trying to speak to us." The second night on Poveglia became suffocating. The group brought Marco back to camp, but he refused to speak, only staring into the darkness. Elena continued studying the serpent symbol, realizing it wasn't just a ritual for appeasement. It might be part of an ancient summoning rite, detailed in the Plague Book. "If the book is here, it could explain everything," she said, though her voice now lacked its earlier confidence. Suddenly, Lucas screamed and pointed to their tent. On the tent fabric, a message had appeared, written in a dark red liquid that looked like blood. "Leave or belong to us." Giovanni drew his dagger, eyes scanning the shadows. "This isn't a prank. The island is warning us." Sophia, despite her fear, tried to analyze the event. "It's a form of communication. Maybe the spirits want us to stop. Or maybe something stronger is controlling them." Marco, still silent, abruptly stood and walked toward the ruins of the old asylum, as if under a spell. The group ran after him, but by the time they reached the building, he had vanished into the crumbling structure. From afar, the ghostly bell rang again, this time louder, and as if it came from inside the hospital itself. The group steps into the abandoned asylum, determined to find Marco and uncover the secrets of Poveglia. In the shadowy, decaying hallways, they discover old medical tools and evidence of gruesome experiments. Sophia begins to feel memories that aren't hers, as though the spirits of former patients are invading her mind. The whispers grow louder, and they find an old journal revealing that a deranged doctor once tried to use the plague book to conduct a horrific ritual. But as they venture deeper into the asylum, a mournful cry echoes from a sealed room, drawing them toward the boundary between life and death. Episode 3: The Asylum Beneath the Shadows. After Marco vanished into the darkness of the abandoned psychiatric hospital on Poveglia Island, the exploration team was forced to delve deeper into the ruins of the past to find him. Once a quarantine station for plague victims in the 18th century and later a psychiatric hospital with brutal experiments, Poveglia has now become a maze of fear. Crumbling hallways, rusted medical instruments, and mournful cries from the darkness reveal that the island is not only haunted by spirits, but also manipulated by a dark entity. Sophia begins to experience strange memories, as if the souls of former patients are invading her mind. Every step in the hospital brings them closer to the plague book and closer to death. The old asylum on Poveglia loomed like a giant ghost under the pale light of dawn. Peeling moss-covered walls and shattered windows stared at the team like hollow eyes. Elena led the way, clutching her notebook, her determined gaze barely masking her fear. "Marco can't have gone far," she said, her voice trembling. "We need to find him before nightfall." Giovanni stepped through the rotting front door, dagger in hand. The air reeked of mold and metal, mixed with something fouler, like dried blood. Luca turned on his recording equipment, headphones in place, and immediately frowned. "There's interference, like hundreds of voices whispering at once." Sophia, at the rear, felt a chill brush across her shoulder, as if an invisible hand had touched her. She turned, but only thick darkness. Stared back. "We shouldn't split up," she whispered, her heart pounding. The main hallway led into a maze of small rooms, each filled with rusty iron beds and old leather restraints. Claw marks covered the walls, forming tangled symbols, identical to the serpent sign the group had seen at the mass grave. "This wasn't just a hospital," Giovanni muttered. "This was a place of torture." As they moved deeper inside, Sophia suddenly stopped, clutching her head. Flashing images raced through her mind. A patient tied to a bed, echoing screams, and the shadow of a man in a white coat holding a large syringe. "Sophia, are you okay?" Elena asked, grabbing her hand. Sophia gasped. I'm seeing things that aren't mine. It's like I'm reliving someone else's memories." She described the images: a lab with surgical tools, the smell of antiseptic, and the cold laughter of a man. Luca checked his device, noticing the interference was intensifying. "Something's interfering with the signal," he said tensely. "It feels intentional." Giovanni led them into a larger room, where they found old surgical tools, rusted scalpels, broken syringes, and a makeshift electric chair. On a table lay a patient log, but all names had been erased. Only dried blood remained. Sophia stumbled backward, hitting a wall. She screamed as it vibrated slightly, as if something inside was moving. "There's someone or something with us," she whispered, eyes wide. Elena inspected the wall and found a crack leading to a hidden room. "Maybe Marco went in here," she said, though her voice lacked confidence. The hidden room revealed an old laboratory with shattered glass jars filled with unknown substances and a table covered in rotting papers. Elena discovered an old leather journal, the cover etched with the serpent symbol. She opened it and read aloud. March 12, 1927. I, Dr. Antonio Rinaldi, discovered the plague book in the bell tower. It promises power over life and death, but the cost. I hear them every night. The following pages described brutal experiments, injecting patients with chemicals to communicate with spirits, and performing summoning rituals based on the book. He was insane, Giovanni said, voice shaking. He tried to summon something, and maybe he succeeded. Luca flinched as a piercing scream rang through his headphones, without a source. It's coming from down the hallway, he said, pointing into the shadows. Elena continued reading, discovering a final entry. They do not sleep. The souls in the graves are awakening. I was wrong to open the book. She shut the journal, heart racing. The book is in the bell tower. We need to find it and find Marco. Following the scream Luca heard, the group arrived at a heavy iron door locked with a rusted padlock. Giovanni pried it open with his dagger, and a freezing wind rushed out, carrying the stench of death. Inside was a small room, walls covered in scratch marks and smeared messages. They see us. In the corner stood an iron bed with leather restraints, still stained with fresh blood. Luca turned on the recorder, and this time, a mournful cry echoed clearly, as if coming from the room itself. It's a woman's voice, he whispered, face pale, but no one's here. Sophia, standing near the bed, felt another false memory surge. She was tied down, a needle in her neck, and Dr. Rinaldi's laughter echoed around her. She screamed and collapsed, sending the group into a panic. Elena helped her up, but her eyes locked onto the corner, where a ghostly figure appeared for a moment, a woman with a twisted face and white, lifeless eyes. She was a patient, Sophia whispered. She wants us to know the truth. But before anyone could react, the iron door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The room's air grew heavier, as if the walls were closing in. Giovanni frantically pounded on the door, but the lock held firm. Luca checked his equipment. The crying had turned into a whisper, repeating, "Stay, stay," still shaking. Sophia stood and whispered, "They don't want us to leave. The spirit's here. They're trapped, and something's controlling them." Elena flipped through the journal again and found a passage describing how Dr. Rinaldi had tried to use the plague book to summon an ancient entity, but the failure had left the patient's souls vulnerable. "He opened something that can't be closed," she said, her voice trembling. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed from the back wall, like someone trying to break through from the other side. Luca pointed his flashlight at the wall and saw a widening crack. From it, a skeletal hand reached out, making the team scream. Giovanni slashed at it with his dagger, but it dissolved like smoke, leaving behind an eerie laugh. The iron door suddenly swung open, and the team bolted from the room, hearts pounding. At the end of the hallway, they spotted Marco standing still, his back turned, muttering incomprehensibly. When Elena called his name, he turned, his eyes bloodshot. "The book, it's in the bell tower," he said, in a voice that didn't sound like his own. The team dragged Marco out of the hospital, but his strange behavior made them fear he had been possessed by the island itself. Determined to find the plague book and break the curse, they turned toward the bell tower, where Dr. Rinaldi had once conducted his horrific ritual. As they climbed the tower, the ghostly bell tolled louder and louder, and the book finally revealed itself. But touching it awakened an even darker entity. Now fully under the island's control, Marco became the greatest threat to the group, drawing them into a battle for survival in the shadows of Poveglia. Episode 4: The Plague Book. After escaping the locked room in the abandoned asylum, the team realized that Marco was being controlled by a supernatural force. Dr. Antonio Rinaldi's journal revealed that the Plague Book, hidden in Poveglia's bell tower, was the key to summoning an ancient entity. Determined to break the curse, the group headed to the tower, where the ghostly bell rang ceaselessly. But when they touched the book, a dark entity was awakened, and Marco became its puppet. Poveglia isn't just a cursed island. It is a gateway to hell, and the team is standing at its threshold. The sky over Poveglia was gray, thick with dark clouds like a coming storm. The team stood before the bell tower, an ivy-covered stone structure rising like a giant finger pointed at the heavens. The eerie tolling of a bell echoed again and again, though no bell hung in the tower. Elena gripped Dr. Rinaldi's journal, her voice shaking but determined. The book is in there. If we want to save Marco and escape, we have to find it. Marco, supported by Giovanni, was disturbingly quiet. His eyes were glazed, and unintelligible murmurs escaped his lips. Sophia watched him, a chill running down her spine. He's not himself anymore, she whispered to Luca. Something is controlling him. Luca, checking the recorder, nodded. The interference is getting stronger. It's like a signal pulling us into the tower. The bell tower's door creaked open as Giovanni pushed it. Inside, the air was heavy, reeking of death and damp soil. A decaying wooden staircase led upward, groaning with every step. The group's flashlights swept over walls carved with serpent symbols, identical to those seen at the grave and in the hospital. We're on the right path, Elena said, though her voice betrayed her fear. At the top of the tower, the team found a small room, empty except for a stone pedestal at the center. On it lay the Plague Book, its black leather cover engraved with the serpent symbol, radiating a cold aura. Elena stepped forward, heart pounding. "This is it," she whispered, her hand trembling as she reached for the book. But the moment her fingers touched the cover, the tower shook, and a deafening toll rang out, as if hundreds of bells rang. At once, Sophia screamed, clutching her head as false memories surged. Images of Dr. Rinaldi standing in this very room, chanting incantations from the book, blood streaming from his eyes. "Don't open it," she cried, but it was too late. Elena opened the first page, and a jet-black gust of wind exploded outward, filled with hundreds of whispering voices. She read aloud, "This book is the key to summoning the Plague Wraith, a being that governs death. But the price is the reader's soul." Giovanni snatched the book from her hands and slammed it shut. "Are you insane? You want us all to die?" But Marco's eyes suddenly lit up, and a twisted smile appeared on his face. "It's too late," he said in a voice that wasn't his. "It's already awake." Marco lunged forward, ripping the book from Giovanni's hands. His strength was unnatural, sending Giovanni sprawling to the floor. Sophia tried to intervene, but Marco turned, his eyes glowing red. "You don't understand," he growled, his voice mixed with supernatural whispers. "The book belongs to them. And now, so do you." Luca shined his flashlight on Marco, but the light was swallowed by the darkness around him. "Marco, wake up!" he yelled, but Marco only laughed, caressing the book like a sacred relic. Elena noticed the serpent symbol on the cover glowing, and the ground beneath them began to quake. "The island is responding," she whispered. "The book is the catalyst." Giovanni stood, dagger in hand. "We have to stop him," he said, but Sophia grabbed his arm. "Don't. Hurting Marco might make things worse." She stared into Marco's eyes, searching for the man they knew, but found only a dark abyss. "We need to understand the curse before we act," she said. The bell's toll grew louder, shaking the entire tower. Stones rained from the ceiling, and a deep growl echoed from beneath the earth. "We have to get out of here," Lucas shouted, pulling Sophia toward the stairs. But Marco blocked the exit, clutching the book to his chest. "No one leaves," he said coldly. "The island needs you." Giovanni lunged to retrieve the book, but Marco threw him down the wooden stairs. The staircase cracked, and part of it collapsed, trapping the team on the upper floor. In panic, Elena flipped through Rinaldi's journal, finding a note to stop the wraith. "The book must be destroyed before the ritual is complete," she shouted. "We have to take back the book." Sophia used her psychological knowledge to reach out. "Marco, I know you're still in there. Fight it." For a moment, his eyes flickered, as if the real Marco was breaking through. He dropped the book, and Elena quickly snatched it. But at that moment, the tower shook violently, and a massive, shadowy figure appeared in the corner, a dark entity with glowing red eyes. Marco screamed and collapsed, and the team took the chance to flee down the crumbling stairs. Back at camp, the group gasped for air, the book clutched tightly in Elena's arms. Though Marco was out of the tower, he remained unconscious, his breath faint. Sophia checked him and found his heartbeat irregular, as if something still controlled him. "The island won't let him go," she said, voice trembling. "And maybe it won't let us go either." Elena opened the book carefully, avoiding speaking the words aloud. The pages were filled with ancient symbols and spells in an unknown language, interspersed with Dr. Rinaldi's notes. "He tried to use the book to control death," she said. "But instead, he summoned the plague wraith, a being that feeds on the souls of those who died here." She pointed to a passage. "Only an opposing ritual, recorded in this book, can seal it. But the cost is a life." Giovanni looked around, dagger still in hand. "We need to destroy the book now." But Sophia shook her head. "If we destroy it the wrong way, we might release the entity completely." In the distance, the bell tolled again, this time accompanied by clearer whispers. "Stay. Forever." Marco suddenly opened his eyes, but instead of speaking, he pointed into the darkness, where dozens of ghostly figures began to appear, surrounding the team. The team realizes that the plague victims and asylum patient spirits are being manipulated by the plague wraith, and the book is the key to calming them. Determined to perform the opposing ritual to seal the entity, they return to the mass gravesite in search of clues. But as Sophia begins to communicate with the spirits, she uncovers a secret about her own psychic abilities, making her the entity's primary target. Meanwhile, Luca vanishes mysteriously near the graves, and the group must face the reality that in order to survive, one of them may have to be sacrificed. Episode 5: Vengeful Souls. After escaping the bell tower, the exploration team now possesses the Plague Book, but at the cost of Marco being completely overtaken by the Plague Wraith. Poveglia Island, with its dark history of plague and Asylum horrors, has become a battlefield between the team and the vengeful spirits controlled by the shadow entity. The group decides to return to the mass grave site to perform the opposing ritual to calm the spirits, but failure comes at a heavy price. Sophia reveals a secret about her psychic abilities, and Luca is pulled into the darkness, leaving the group to face an ever-growing power. Poveglia doesn't just want to keep them, it wants to consume them. The atmosphere on Poveglia was heavier than ever as the group returned to the mass graves. Sunken earth, exposed white bones, and rotting cloth fragments seemed to tremble lightly under the moonlight. Elena opened the Plague Book, searching for the opposing ritual Dr. Rinaldi had noted. "We need to soothe the spirits before the Plague Wraith completes its summoning ritual," she said, her voice shaking. "If not, it will use them to keep us here forever." Sophia stood near one of the graves, an icy sensation crawling over her body. Suddenly, she collapsed, eyes shut tight. In her mind, she saw dozens of ghostly figures, plague victims with distorted faces and outstretched hands begging for help. A woman in tattered robes stepped forward and whispered, "Help us. It won't let us go." Sophia awoke, gasping, and told the group, "They're trapped. The Wraith is feeding off their pain to grow stronger." Marco, still unconscious, began muttering strange words, his voice mingling with cold laughter. Giovanni gripped his dagger, eyes steely. "We should leave him. He's not Marco anymore." But Sophia objected. "If we abandon him, we'll never break the curse." Elena found a page in the book describing the opposing ritual. Burn a cloth fragment from the grave, sprinkle the ashes over a serpent symbol, and recite an incantation to release the spirits. The team gathered old cloth from the grave, arranged a stone circle around the largest pit. Though afraid, Luca recorded everything, hoping to capture spiritual signals. "If it works, we might hear them leaving," he said, without much conviction. Sophia stood in the circle and recited the incantation. From the book, her voice echoing in the still air. The flame burst to life as Giovanni lit the cloth, and the ashes were sprinkled over a serpent-marked bone. But as the final words were spoken, the ground shook violently, and a low growl rose from the pit. Ghostly figures appeared, not to leave, but to surround the team, their white eyes glowing with rage. "We did it wrong," Elena shouted, flipping through the book. "This ritual needs a psychic to lead it. Without one, it activates the Wraith." Sophia trembled, realizing she was the only one capable, but she wasn't ready to face that power. Back at camp, Sophia sat curled up, eyes filled with worry. I never told anyone," she began, voice quivering. "Since I was a child, I've seen things no one else could. Figures, voices. I thought they were hallucinations, but here, I know they're real. She revealed her psychic ability to sense and communicate with spirits. That's why it's affecting me more. The Wraith knows I can stand against it. Elena took her hand, gaze firm. You're the key, Sophia. If you lead the ritual, we might save everyone. But Giovanni shook his head. Or she might die. The book says the ritual requires a life. Luca, monitoring the recorder, suddenly froze. Listen to this. He played a recording, and a whisper echoed. The one who sees must pay the price. Sophia shuddered, realizing the voice was directed at her. Marco, still motionless, suddenly opened his eyes and laughed, a voice that wasn't his. She belongs to us, he said, causing the team to recoil. Sophia looked into Marco's eyes and felt the Wraith watching her through him. I'll do the ritual, she said, firmly, but we have to prepare better. The team returned to the grave site to attempt the ritual again, this time with Sophia leading. They rebuilt the stone circle, lit more cloth, and Sophia began chanting, focusing her psychic energy. The air grew dense, and ghostly spirits appeared, but this time they didn't attack. A woman, the same one Sophia had seen in the visions, stepped forward and whispered, "Free us before it takes everything." But just as the ritual neared completion, Lucas suddenly screamed and collapsed. Beside the grave, he clutched his head, muttering, "I see them, thousands of them. They're pulling me." Before anyone could react, black smoke surged from the pit, wrapping around him like invisible chains. Sophia tried to pull him back, but the smoke was too strong. It dragged him down into the grave. He screamed one last time before vanishing, leaving behind a chilling silence. Giovanni cursed, his dagger clattering to the ground. The island took him. Elena clutched the book, eyes red with grief. We can't stop. Luca, he sacrificed himself so we could go on. But Sophia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, the ritual isn't done. The Wraith is toying with us. The team stood around the grave, moonlight shining on white bones protruding from the soil. Though crushed by grief over Luca, Sophia focused on the ritual. She felt the spirits trying to connect with her, but a greater force, the plague wraith, interfered. From deep within the pit, a massive shadowy figure emerged, shapeless except for glowing red eyes and a rumble that shook the earth. You cannot win, a deep voice boomed, as if from the island itself. Marco, still possessed, stood and approached the pit. Give me the book, he said, voice merged with the entities. Elena clutched the book tightly, but Sophia stopped her. Don't. If we hand it over, everything ends. The shadow grew, and the spirits began to wail, as if in agony. Sophia tried to communicate with them using her psychic gift, but the wraith's power overwhelmed her. She collapsed, blood dripping from her nose, as an image of Dr. Rinaldi flashed in her mind, standing in the bell tower, laughing maniacally as he summoned the entity. We have to go back to the tower, Sophia whispered. That's where it all began. Now only Elena, Sophia, Giovanni, and the possessed Marco remain. They decide to return to the bell tower for a final confrontation with the plague wraith. Dr. Rinaldi's journal revealed he once tried to summon the entity to control death, but failed, turning Poveglia into a prison for lost souls. Sophia, with her psychic gift, is now their only hope to lead the opposing ritual. but she knows the price may be her life. Meanwhile, Marco, fully under the Wraith's control, becomes the group's greatest threat, forcing them into a painful choice: sacrifice one of their own to save the rest. The ghostly bell tolls again, drawing them into a final battle in the tower's shadows. Episode 6: The Bell Tower of Fate. After Luca's loss to the Plague Wraith, the remaining expedition members, Elena, the historian, Sophia, the psychologist, Giovanni, the local guide, and Marco, the cameraman, now possessed, faced the brink of death on Poveglia Island. The Plague Book has revealed that sealing the entity requires a life, and Marco, under the Wraith's control, has become a threat beyond reason. The group decides to return to the Bell Tower, where Dr. Antonio Rinaldi once performed the horrific summoning ritual to end the curse. But when they finally face the shadow entity, they realize that the cost of victory may be far greater than they imagined. The Bell Tower isn't just the source of the curse, it's where their fate will be decided. Darkness cloaked Poveglia as the group moved toward the Bell Tower, moonlight casting eerie shadows on the ivy-covered stone walls. Elena clutched the Plague Book, her heart racing as she recalled Rinaldi's journal warning. Only one life can seal the Wraith. Marco, bound by rope and restrained by Giovanni, staggered behind them, his glowing red eyes flickering with an inhuman light. "You won't escape," he murmured, his voice layered with the entity's deep growl. Though exhausted from psychic strain and false memories, Sophia led the way. "The tower is where Rinaldi started everything," she said, her voice trembling, yet resolute. "If we want to end this, it must be there." Giovanni, dagger in hand, scanned the shadows. "The island doesn't want us to do this. Can't you feel it? It's breathing." As they neared the tower, the ghostly bell tolled louder than ever, shaking the earth. Shadowy figures, plague victims, appeared in the dark, silent as sentinels. Sophia felt their pain surge through her like a wave crushing her mind. "They're trying to warn us," she whispered, "but the Wraith won't let them speak." The bell tower's door creaked open as Giovanni pushed it, revealing the rotting wooden stairs leading up to the room where they first found the book. Elena flipped through Rinaldi's journal and found a final entry she hadn't read before. April 15th, 1927. "I was wrong. The Plague Wraith does not control death, it devours life. It demands the summoner's blood to complete the ritual. I will offer myself, but I know it won't be enough." Below the entry was a blood-drawn serpent symbol. Rinaldi tried to sacrifice himself, Elena said, her voice trembling. But he failed, and the Wraith consumed the island. Sophia nodded, her eyes fixed on Marco, who muttered strange incantations. "The opposing ritual needs a psychic to lead it," she said, "and I believe it has to be me." Giovanni shook his head, gripping his dagger. "No, Sophia, there must be another way." But she offered a sad smile. "There isn't. I've seen them, the spirits. They told me I'm the only one who can face the Wraith." In the distance, the bell tolled again, as if urging them deeper into the tower. At the top of the tower, the team constructed a stone circle, mirroring the one at the mass grave. Sophia stood in the center, holding the book, focusing her psychic energy. She began to recite the opposing spell, her voice resonating through the room, blending with the tolling bell. Ghostly figures emerged again, but this time they did not attack. A woman, one Sophia had seen before, approached and whispered, "Free us. Use the blood of the one who sees." Marco suddenly broke, free from the ropes, and lunged at Sophia. "You will not take it," he roared, his voice fully overtaken by the wraith. Giovanni tried to block him, but Marco, empowered, flung him against the wall. Elena screamed and tried to pull him back, but Marco turned toward her, his red eyes burning. "The book is mine," he growled, and black smoke poured from his mouth, engulfing the room. Still chanting, Sophia felt the spirits of plague victims and asylum patients merging with her. She saw their torment, tortured, abandoned, buried alive. "I'll help you," she whispered, blood streaming from her nose due to the strain. As the ritual neared completion, the smoke from Marco condensed into the form of the plague wraith, a colossal figure with glowing eyes and a body of shadow. Still possessed, Marco snatched the book from Sophia, but in a brief flicker of clarity, his eyes softened and his voice returned. "Elena, Sophia," he whispered, "kill me before it takes everything." Elena shook her head, tears falling. "No, Marco, we can save you." Giovanni, bloodied, rose to his feet. "There's no time," he shouted, charging to strike Marco, but Sophia stopped him. "Don't. If you kill him, the wraith will grow stronger." Instead, she continued the ritual, her voice weakening. The entity roared, shaking the tower and sending stones tumbling down. Marco, briefly lucid, looked at Sophia. "You have to do it," he said, then rushed to the altar and stabbed himself with Giovanni's dagger, letting his blood drip onto the serpent symbol. "Use my blood," he yelled before collapsing, unconscious. Sophia, drained but focused, completed the incantation, and a blinding white light burst forth, repelling the wraith. But the bell tower began to collapse, and the team had to escape. They dragged Marco from the tower as its stone walls crumbled behind them. The ghostly bell fell silent, but the ground still trembled as if the island itself was in pain. Sophia, weakened by the ritual, fell into Elena's arms. "We did it." "Partly," she whispered, "but the wraith isn't sealed. Marco's blood only weakened it." Giovanni carried Marco's unconscious body, looking back at the collapsing tower. "We lost Luca, and now Marco," he said, voice cracking. Elena held the book tightly, realizing the ritual wasn't finished. "The book says it requires the seer's blood," she murmured, looking at Sophia. "She's our last hope." But from the rubble, a low growl echoed, and black smoke rose once more, carrying whispers. "You cannot run." Marco began convulsing, and the serpent symbol on his hand glowed. Sophia shivered, knowing the wraith was still lurking, waiting for its final chance to complete the summoning. The remaining team, Elena, Sophia, and Giovanni, carry Marco's unconscious body and the plague book away from the ruined tower. They now realize that to seal the plague wraith, Sophia must lead the final ritual, and the price will be her life. Meanwhile, Rinaldi's journal reveals one last detail. The ritual must be performed at the largest grave, the original site of the first summoning. But as they prepare, Marco awakens, fully possessed by the entity, and attacks, dragging them into one final battle to save their own souls and those still trapped on Poveglia. Episode 7: Dawn over Poveglia. Following the collapse of the bell tower, the surviving members of the expedition, Elena, historian, Sophia, psychologist, Giovanni, local guide, and Marco, cameraman, still under the Wraith's control, faced their final moment of reckoning. On Poveglia Island, Dr. Antonio Rinaldi's journal reveals that the sealing ritual must be performed at the island's largest mass grave, where the entity was first summoned in the 18th century. Sophia, with her psychic gift, is the only hope to complete the ritual, but the cost is her life. With Marco fully possessed, he becomes the last and deadliest obstacle. As dawn breaks, the group must make a harrowing choice: sacrifice one to save all, or let Poveglia consume them forever. Yet even if the ritual succeeds, the island still holds secrets, and the question remains: has the curse truly ended? Dawn painted Poveglia's horizon in red, but the island's oppressive air remained. The group stood around the largest mass grave, a deep pit of white bones and collapsed earth, with the serpent symbol carved deep into stone. Elena opened the plague book to its final page, detailing the sealing ritual. "We need the blood of the seer," she read shakily, her eyes on Sophia. "And it must be done here, where the Wraith was first summoned." Though drained from numerous spirit communications, Sophia nodded. "I know what I have to do," she said, voice firm but eyes filled with fear. Giovanni, dagger in hand, tied Marco to a nearby tree. Marco thrashed and snarled in a voice not his own. "You will not win. The island is mine." His red eyes glowed as the earth beneath them trembled, proof the Wraith was stirring. Elena and Sophia built a stone circle around the grave, placing old cloth remnants from plague victims at the center. Holding the book, Sophia began reciting the sealing incantation, her voice echoing through the still air. The ghostly figures of plague victims and asylum patients appeared, standing silently as if awaiting release. As Sophia recited the spell, black smoke rose from the pit, taking the form of the plague wraith, a massive, shadowy figure with burning red eyes. "Seer, you dare challenge me?" Its deep voice thundered, shaking the ground. Blood poured from Sophia's nose as she pressed on, feeling the spirits of the victims linking with her soul. Marco suddenly snapped his bindings and charged at Sophia with inhuman speed. Giovanni leapt in his path, but was hurled into the pit, where tendrils of black smoke wrapped around him. "Giovanni!" Elena screamed, trying to pull him back, but the smoke dragged him into the darkness. Sophia never paused. Her voice wove through the spirit's wails as the ritual continued. Marco turned to Elena, gripping a sharp bone from the pit. "Give me the book," he roared, his voice completely overtaken by the wraith. Elena stepped back, terrified, but Sophia cried out, "Don't. If the wraith gets the book, it's over." As Marco lunged, Sophia summoned a burst of white energy from her psychic core, blasting him away. "I'm sorry, Marco," she whispered, tears streaming. The ritual neared completion, but Sophia's body weakened rapidly. She knew the price: the seer's blood. She sliced her palm, and let her blood fall on the serpent symbol carved in stone. "Free them," she whispered, looking at the gathered souls. The woman from her previous visions stepped forward and gently touched her shoulder, as if in thanks. The wraith roared, its form beginning to unravel as Sophia's blood touched the stone. But it would not surrender easily. A wave of black smoke surged and wrapped around her, dragging her toward the pit. Elena screamed and tried to pull her back, but Sophia shook her head. "This is the only way," she said faintly. She pushed Elena away and stepped into the pit, chanting the final words that a blinding white light erupted, consuming the smoke. The spirits moaned one last time before fading into peace. The pit trembled, then collapsed, burying Sophia and the wraith beneath it. Elena fell to her knees, clutching the book, tears streaming. "Sophia," she whispered, but only silence answered. Now alone with Marco unconscious, Elena dragged him to the shore where their boat awaited. She looked back at Poveglia, now eerily still. The ghostly bell was silent, and the air felt lighter. But the book in her hand still radiated a cold energy, as if it retained a piece of the wraith. Marco began to stir, his eyes returning to normal. "Elena, what happened?" he asked weakly. She told him everything, unable to speak Sophia's name without choking up. "She saved us," she said, gazing out to sea. They boarded the boat, leaving Poveglia behind, but Elena couldn't shake the feeling the island was still watching as the boat glided through the Venetian Bay. Elena opened the book one last time, intending to throw it overboard. But a new page had appeared, one she hadn't seen, written in blood. "The curse never ends." Her heart pounded. She slammed the book shut and hurled it into the sea, praying it would sink forever. Back in Venice, Elena sat at their familiar cafe, where the team had once gathered before the expedition. She gazed out at the canal, trying to erase Poveglia's horrors from her memory, but they were etched deep. Marco, now recovering, refused to speak of the island, but sometimes muttered strange words in his sleep, as if the wraith still lingered. Elena opened her notebook to document everything, but couldn't bring herself to finish. She looked out the window, and for a moment, she saw Sophia's pale figure standing by the water, eyes blank and staring back. Elena blinked, and the vision was gone. From afar, a faint bell echoed through the morning air, even though Poveglia was miles away. She closed her notebook, wondering, had Sophia truly sealed the wraith, or only delayed it? The book was gone beneath the waves, but the serpent symbol still haunted her dreams. Was the curse truly over? Or was Poveglia simply waiting for the next soul to dare return? Elena returned to her normal life, but every night she dreamed of Poveglia, its mass graves, bell tower, and Sophia's fading face. One day, a parcel arrived without a sender. Inside was an old cloth fragment, marked with the serpent symbol, just like the ones from the island. The toll of a ghostly bell echoed faintly in her mind, even though she was far from Poveglia. Had the plague wraith truly been sealed? Had the book really sunk, or had it found its way back? And most importantly, had Elena truly escaped the islands? Grasp, or had she become a part of it, like the spirits still trapped on Poveglia? These questions remained unanswered, waiting either for the light of truth or to fade forever into the darkness of the island. The story may be over, But has the curse truly ended? If it sent chills down your spine, leave a comment and let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for the next chilling mystery.